Okay, guys, we're back. I don't know what was wrong with the broadcast, but I hope that this solves the problem. So let's try this again. I'm going to wait for Laura to rejoin. Hi, Angelica. I hope you are well. I'm waiting for my co host to join. We're going to have a conversation about mental health today. So, we had some broadcasting issues just a second ago. So, I'm hoping that it's been taken care of, but I'm waiting for her to join so that we can get the conversation started. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you guys are safe and well, and trying your best to. My co-host is being added now. Let's see. Laura, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you as well. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, so thank you guys for coming back in. I'm just going to say a brief intro again so we can have it on the full video. But thank you guys for joining this conversation around mental health. We know in order to um, heal ourselves, we have to talk about mental health. And so that's what we're doing today. I think it's particularly important given everything that's happening in the world today. So thanks for joining. I am an educator and a parent and student advocate. I believe in elevating the voice of our youth and the minoritized folks. And so I think it's really important that I walk the talk that I talk about. And Laura is a former student of mine. She was brilliant and dope then. She's even more brilliant and dope today. And so she's going
Thank
to talk to
you.
you about her accomplishments and kind of how she ended up in the mental health space. So, Laura, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about you.
All right. So, hi guys. Like she said, my name is Laura Clincy. From the South Side. I was a student at Johnson, but I completed my undergrad at the University of Illinois. There, I studied English and creative writing, but I had a lot of interesting experiences that landed me in mental health. So, right now, I'm actually a student success coach for an AmeriCorps program called City Year. And if you guys are ever around the city early in the morning when you drop your kids off, or if you're ever around the elementary school, you'll see some people with some red jackets on, and they're probably chanting or whatever. That's my job, pretty much. So, I have the great honor and privilege to serve young people in the Chicago public school system, which I am a product of. So when it comes to mental health, I pretty much incorporate social emotional learning in the work that I do. So that means social emotional learning. Yes, SEL. So we basically use this program to help young people learn how to better themselves so that they can better the world around them. So it teaches them really important skills like anger management, conflict resolution, and just having goals and how to reach those goals and how to build self-confidence, because we live in a world that tells Black children that they are not enough. And most of us have grown up internalizing a lot of that. And I guess this is my way of just trying to debunk that for younger people, but to also pay it forward in my community how I can.
Yay! I am so proud of you. I feel like I've said that enough, but probably not enough. So I'm proud of you for being the dope student that you were then and for all that you're doing now. So we're going to just jump into the conversation. If you guys have any questions just around mental health, it could be I'm asking for a friend style. It could be, I work with young people, or I have a child who's battling this, or whatever the case is, or this is what I'm feeling and I'm trying to figure out how to process. I will say at the end of this live, I'm going to post some resources in the comments, which will, so I have resources around healing circles for Black men. I have resources around looking for different therapists, if you want a male therapist, if you want a female therapist. So like I'm going to post tons of resources at the end of this so that if you can't finish listening to the entire talk, please return back to get those resources, right? So we are at an interesting time in our lives, in history, right? That uh, is bringing up a lot of emotions, not just for adults, but also for children. And so this
Mhm.
conversation is really, really important. And I want us to start first by talking about, Laura, if you could just talk a little bit about like, why is it important for us to talk about mental health? Like, why is it so important? And especially given times like this, like, why should we be centering ourselves on this conversation?
So mental health is so multifaceted, but the easiest way I can get into it is saying that your mind stores so much information, and it stores information from everything we experience. So when we are in moments of crises, imagine the state of our minds. So it's just really important to get to a place that you can settle your mind so that you can then conquer your body, and then we can actually do the work that we need to do to stay grounded and to actually make change in this world. So mental health is really important because it tackles the unseen. So the
Mm,
physical body is just us, it's what you see, is what we see when we see each other. But our minds, only we can really deal with our minds, and our minds are reflections of our lives and all the experiences we have and all the knowledge we gain too. So it just stores so much information. It's just really important to take on mental health, because when you don't conquer the unseen, all these things start to happen and we start to hurt people when we're not really trying to. And it affects everything from our education to our personal relationships to our physical health. It affects everything.
mm. Yeah, so it's really dope that you mentioned that, because I often, and being an educator for the past decade, I realize that I have shared things and philosophies with my students that now I look back
Mm,
on and I'm like, oh my God, why was I saying that? Right. So, for example, saying things like failure is not an option. Right.
mm,
Well, when you say things like that, like my heart was pure and I meant like I want you to
yeah.
succeed and you can do it. But then what happens is you internalize that. And so then when you fail, you're like, oh my God, I must not be good enough. I didn't
Mm,
do something right. Right. So that's the mind, as you're talking about, like some of the things based on our experiences that lead us to think and feel certain things. Right. The other thing I'm thinking about, right, is this whole idea of, you know, when we talk about, our mental health, we don't sometimes we don't know what that means, right? And so I think that it's important that we center ourselves on this conversation so that we can try to make connections, so that we can support ourselves and then support those that
mm,
we love, right? So there's a lot happening, right? And so
mm,
I have been on Facebook all day today, and I've been seeing different posts from different people. Some are educators, some are parents, and they've been talking about remote learning. And
mm,
I saw some principals who said, look, my teachers are not giving, not some. I saw one principal, shout out to the illustrious Morgan Park High School. Dr. Skanes sent a message to her team and said, listen, we are not giving students new work this week. We just are
mm,
not. Like, they're dealing with a lot. We're not doing it. If they want to recover some previous assignments that they wanted to do, great, let them work on that. But we are not expecting them to show up in this way this week,
mm,
right? That was one. Many of the other principals that I've saw, or screenshots from principals that parents have posted, said things like, we're going to continue business as you. They didn't say those words, but in so many words, it's like, hey, remote learning starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. We hope to see you. We hope you're fine. We know it's a lot going on, but we'll see you at 8 a.m. Right. So
right.
now I want us to talk a little bit about the connection between mental health and schooling and what that means. Right. So as a parent, if you're dealing with remote learning, as a student, if you're dealing with remote learning, like, or what is the connection you see between mental health and education?
I think both as a student and an educator, I've experienced so much stress when it came to school because there's so much pressure on students to perform when the world around them is literally burning. So, and these are children. If adults can barely grapple with what's going on, how can children understand it? They barely get their
Mm,
bodies and emotions. So, I think it's just really important that people create spaces that students can actually process. If you want them to do the work, that's one thing, but you can't expect them to do it empty, hurting, like scared. You can't expect them to do work that way. You don't do work that way. You want, it's not even fair to even require, especially children, sorry, to have to work under such crazy conditions. So I think the connection that I make between school and mental health is that I don't think I was ever given the space to actually process things,
mm,
because this isn't the first like shooting that I saw. I'm sorry, this mic is irritating my ears. Okay,
mm-hmm,
there we go. Um, but there were never spaces to really talk about things. There was always just this pressure to perform. And what you're doing is basically letting students know that you don't even care about me enough to ask if I'm okay. But you
mm,
want me to read all these chapters. You want me to complete all these problems. Like, how is that even fair? And
mm,
so, a suggestion, the bare minimum you can do as an educator is create space first,
mm-hmm,
provide students with resources, And we know that since we're not in schools, it's even harder to really tap into people's mental health because it's remote, it's from home. So most of your interactions with students will be through a screen. And so your students need you more now than like ever before, probably. And it's not even about the content of the class you may teach or whatever content you're actually providing to students. It's the most humane thing, just asking a person if they're okay. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, so I think about creating those spaces, and I think that's super important, right? I also think that it's important for us to understand. So, what I heard some people say was, we're going to still have our Zoom classes today, but we're not going to teach. But, students can come on and talk about, how they're processing this and, what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And I think that's super dope. I do need to say, though, publicly, that I do not think students should be held accountable, meaning by grades, if they choose not to show up, right? So I think what some educators I believe educators have the best intention, right? And what they're saying is, we're going to still have class. We need you to show up, but we're going to give you the space to talk about how you feel. And I think that those intentions are pure in that. But I think we also have to understand that they may not feel like showing up, even if it's to talk about their feelings, right? And it's all fresh for them, right? And maybe they don't know how they're feeling right now, or maybe they don't, have the words, or maybe they're crying and don't want to be seen on camera, right? And so I think when we're talking about the connection to schooling, like we really have to be compassionate. And I know some educators want to see their students' faces, but like not forcing them to turn on the camera when they're in Google Hangout, or giving them the space to pass if you are doing a community circle or whatever, and you are asking them how they're feeling. If they don't feel like talking about it, then let them pass. Like, it's okay to say, and it's not disrespectful. It's not that they don't want to engage or participate, but we have to give people, especially young people, the space to own their emotions. So I'm glad that you shared that. So I'm thinking about like just different ways for us to manage. I'll just be the first to say, and I believe in vulnerability. That's me. Laura, if you want to share any of your personal thoughts around mental health, I definitely want you to do that. But I want to model in saying that like I have been struggling myself mentally for at least probably about 2 years now, about a year and a half. And it's a constant battle with my mind, right? So productivity is something that I'm used to. I can get up, move, do what I need to do to make it happen. I can post on social media. I can do all these things. And so people assume that I'm okay because it seems like life is happening business as usual, right? But what people don't make the connection between is the fact that like I can make a post right now and be okay to make a post and 2 minutes later be crying, but you don't know that because what you saw was the post. And so just that quick, something could have triggered me to be in a state of distress. And so I just want us to be mindful of that as we are navigating these spaces ourselves. And as other people are navigating these spaces, because I think it's easy to assume that everybody's okay. Like, oh, I saw them both on social media, or, oh, they are still going to work every day or doing whatever. And it's like, you have no idea what's happening underneath that. And so, this battle of the mind, I think is one that we really need to talk about, because people can tell me how dope I am. They can tell me they're inspired by me. And I still at night think about if I'm worth it, if I'm worthy, if I have what I need to be successful, if I, am smart enough, if I'm, like, I'm just being honest about what I'm battling with in my mind, right? And this is not for people to say like, oh, it's going to be fine. And I think we have to watch kind of how we respond to people too, right? Because when people are like, oh, just worry about the things you can control, or, all these things in good, with good intention, it's just like, you don't get me. That's what I feel like when people say things like that, when I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough for this, or I don't know if I should apply for this role because I don't feel like I'm qualified. And then they're like, girl, stop playing. People would love to be in your position and all that. And it's like, you're trying to help, but you're not helping. So tell me what you're thinking about how you're dealing with just navigating mentally your own self.
Oh, the mind is a crazy thing in a crazy place. I will start there. I've been in therapy since I was 18. I'm 23 now, so that's a good 5 years. Um, and I noticed that I had mental health or struggles with handling my mental health. I would say that in high school, and I realized that I was very anxious when it came to like taking tests and stress related to school, basically stuff like that. But also just how to manage certain emotions. But when I went to school, I had the great opportunity to really like focus on myself in that way. And I was able
Mm-hmm.
to like go to therapy and really get to unravel some things that I had probably repressed and things that I tried to forget but really couldn't, or things I was just blatantly struggling with. So I got that experience, and that's a very privileged place to come from. And I want to just acknowledge that first, that is,
Mm-hmm.
I am privileged to be able to go to a university and have those resources, because many people do not have that access. Um, but now I think my mental health, with everything that's going on right now, I think life has been throwing me curveballs for quite some time now, especially in like the last year or so. I lost my mom. I lost a child like within 2 months apart from each other.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost my grandpa. Like, I'm just constantly in a state of losing, losing, losing. But what death teaches us, and what I think people should really pay attention to, is that it is a part of life,
Mm-hmm.
one, and two, that there is no way to prepare for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's very important to establish certain things in your life, that when curveballs are thrown your way, you are still grounded. It's not to
Mm-hmm.
say that you don't deal with these things, or that you're like kind of like you're ignoring what's happening around you. It's not reverse psychology. It's just saying that I know what's going on. I'm going to take care of myself, but I'm going to get back to it because life goes on. And if I allow myself to stay in this place, I cannot live. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to die. I'm really just trying to live.
Yeah.
And when it comes to tackling the mind, you have to train the mind to receive things as they are, but to also, it's kind of like what the body does with food. It's like you take what you need and you get rid of what you don't need. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
same with the mind. So fuel your mind with things that you need, not what you want, but what you need, and to really ground yourself in that way. What helps me is meditation and prayer. I think, especially in this time, I've been praying to God to add, I've just been asking God for peace and for clarity, because it's like, God, your people out here crying, like we're dying out here, we're hurting. Like, how do we actually get through to people enough to see that we're all people, but to how do we even make clarity? Like, how is this situation going to ever be clear to everyone? Like, that's a very difficult question. And, you know, God is all knowing and he's all seeing, but we're not the same. We don't have the same perception or perspective as God at all. And I hate to be spiritual, but that's the only way I know, because that's what's been grounding me all my life. Um, but when it comes to I'll just answer your initial question of how am I'm okay, but I'm more concerned for people who don't have much, who are really out here hurting, and people who are losing their lives. Like, I'm more concerned
Mm-hmm.
about other people than I'm actually concerned about Laura. And maybe that's not the best thing, but I'm just kind of taking everything in as it comes. But I'm also realizing that my place in this life is to help others, and I'm just thinking of more ways to help people, honestly.
Yeah.
And not trying to get too caught up in being too or being too upset, being too angry about what's going on. Um, but
Yeah.
that's me. And I'm also leaning on people around me, because it's a communal thing. We're all hurting. So just making sure to not internalize too much, but enough to just, if I have to cry, I'll cry with my friends, I'll cry with my sister, or, leaning on my community, my foundation. So that's been helping me.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, Laura. We talk about the village, right? And I think, people have I think very good reason to say that that we've lost this village approach and we need to get back to that. At the same time, I think that we are a communal people and we know that we thrive on leaning on one another. And I think what you're saying is definitely a key component to being able to make it through all of this. Like, we were not meant to do this alone. And I
Mm-mm.
think that's why it's so important for us to have spaces like this where we can actually share our stories and our lived experiences with battles, around mental health. Because, I don't know about you and I can't speak for all Black folk, but I can tell you that I have often heard and seen in my family and outside of my family, people say like, oh, it'll be okay. Just pray. It'll be fine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
get over it. You don't need to go to a psychologist. You're not crazy. You don't need to talk to a therapist, you're fine, those sorts of things. And so we are battling really more so with just the perception that taking care of ourselves mentally is it's a taboo topic, right, in our community. And really what we have to get to the place of is like leaning on one another. Like, it's okay to cry, it's okay to reach out for support. And I'm talking to myself when I say this, right, because I have
Yeah.
people all day long who will text me and say, hey, I know you are struggling, it's Mother's Day, I'm thinking of you, tell me what you need. And I could need a whole lot of stuff and will not say a word, right? And that
Mm.
goes back to battling the mind of like,
Yeah.
I don't want to put my burdens on somebody else, or I don't want them to think that I'm not capable of doing the work that they are requiring of me to do. If I say that I need time and space, how will they view me? Will I not
Mm.
then be good enough, right? So again, it goes back to the mind. And so you talking about the village, like finding your tribe, finding your space to be able to release and cry with and do all that, but getting back to the work, because if you feel like your core
Yeah.
purpose here is to help others, then that's what you're going to do. And so I just appreciate you for being able to acknowledge that and own that and share with others. Like, we need our village. So reach out, right? And I say that all the time on Facebook, like, hit me up. If you need somebody to talk to, like, utilize your village. And so thank you for sharing that. So I'm wondering, are there ways that we can like educate students and families around mental health? Like, what if people are listening to this and they're like, I don't even know what you guys mean by mental health. Like, where can they start? How do they begin?
I think the first thing I'm thinking of is like acknowledge that it's a real thing. Like, it's real. So start there because you have to like acknowledge that things are what they are before you actually get into like, fixing it. And I think, especially within our community, we have to break the stigma that we have against mental health. Do we think that because you see a therapist, you're crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Because you see a therapist, or just any mental health services at all, whether it be therapist or medication, that there's something wrong with you. But it's the human experience to experience trauma. Like, that's just, we all have different levels of it. So you have to start there. You have to start somewhere. And then you probably should, I'm a fan of referring people to things. Like, maybe I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but I'll refer someone else. We have to get to cultivate better relationships with our healthcare workers. So not just our physical care doctors or physicians, like look into psychiatrists, look into psychologists. Like, those people are very important, especially when it comes to African American mental health. You should very much be looking into some Black therapists, some Black psychologists, because just like there's a bias that happens because we usually are more able to open up and talk to people that look like us, just because it's familiarity that way. Another way to educate families is to just provide them with the resources. And I think a big thing that I've been seeing, because everything is, we're like quarantined and everything's remote, like utilize social media to the point where, like, we live in the era of information. You can find out about anything if you want to. So just use your social media a lot more intentionally. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
like feeding your feed with all this garbage from
Preach.
people that aren't helping you grow at all. People just want to take your money. Honestly, they want to capitalize off of your areas of weakness. Probably follow some people that encourage you to not just meditate, but encourage you to probably do some shadow work. I don't know if y'all
Mm-hmm.
know what that is, but basically looking at the parts of yourself that aren't so pretty and trying to
Mm-hmm.
work on them and fix them. Or just following people that are leaders in your communities that want to see you grow, that want to see good things happening. And it doesn't always have to be around mental health. It could be around whatever your interests are. Just using your social media a lot more intentionally, because all this again is information. You're feeding your mind. You're feeding everything you do. That's feeding the mind, literally. So just be more intentional with that. And
Oh, yep, go ahead. I
oh
didn't know
no,
you
no.
were, go ahead.
Um, and also, it starts at home. Everything starts at home. Parents are their children's first teacher. And that's what my mom always told me. That's what my dad always told me. So it starts at home. If you see that you don't have the access you need to things, maybe cultivate a culture in your home that opens up certain conversations to be had. And that takes a lot of work. I'm not gonna make it seem like it's easy, because we're really stubborn. I'm really stubborn. I don't know how people with several kids do it, but it's not always easy to do that. But just doing small things like spending more time with your children is a big thing. Um, I'm trying to think of a more tangible. Encouraging children to reach out into like the visual arts or just artistic things generally to help them express themselves, that helps too. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's something that parents can do with their kids too, like coloring or drawing, music, all that good stuff. We do it a lot in the Black community anyway. We do everything artistic. That's just what we love doing. So that's not hard to do. Um, that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, so two things you mentioned that I want to highlight. One was just this last piece around social media. I cannot tell you guys enough how important it is for you. Talked about being intentional about what you're feeding your mind. And, people will ask me, how do you know about all this stuff on social media or these different events? Like, and it's because I'm intentional about who I follow. I'm intentional about, what groups I'm a part of. Everybody who invites me to a group, I don't accept it, right? Like I look at the content, I see what kind of posts are there. If it's not anything that I think could be beneficial to me, I don't see any videos. I think she got kicked out. She's gonna come back. I don't see any videos of people fighting. I don't see, even the Boosie video and all that stuff. I didn't see any of that. And I tell you guys, I don't know how many Facebook friends I have now. Maybe it's like 2,500 or something. But out of the 2,500 people on my friends list, and of that, probably like the 800 or 900 of them that I actually follow every day, not a single one of them were talking about it or posting it. And so to me, that's an indication of the hard work that I've put in around, like, who am I letting into my space? What am I listening to? What am I watching? And what am I subscribing to? Right. And it doesn't mean that, I'm any better than anybody else because they want to see that kind of stuff. I just know that listening to that stuff and watching those videos doesn't help me mentally. It doesn't help me go through any easier. It doesn't help me go through life any easier when I'm battling my own stuff and then have to then think about foolishness that in my mind doesn't help me, right? And so I think it's the social media piece is important, and sometimes we have to take a break from it. Sometimes we have to say, like, this is a bit much, let me take a couple days off. Some people, I've done months off of social media, like month of June, done. I can't. And it's really hard because we really become dependent on social media. And what I realized most recently about myself is that me taking a break from social media generally does me more harm than it does good, because my page is set up to be so inspirational and feeds me in the way that I need to be fed. When I don't have it, it actually does harm to me. That's how dope my social media is, right? So it's important for us to guard our minds. It's important for us to think about, what we're letting in, what we're debating about, what we're choosing to comment on, and going back and forth, and to what extent. All of that is adding to our mental stability, right? Like, is it helping you to feel better about life and yourself? If not, then you probably want to think about not engaging in it. So she talked about that. The second thing she talked about, and I'm hoping that she joins back again. She's not asked to come back yet, but the second thing she talked about was it starts at home. And I don't want to, she mentioned this, and I want to say this as well. We're both privileged in that we have access to healthcare, we have access to therapy services, and that is a privilege that not everyone in our community has. At the end of this talk, I will put resources in the comments around how you can look for therapists. There are some free things that you can go to. So there are these healing circles on Sundays that used to happen with me, and I'm not sure if they still have them because of the COVID stuff, but maybe perhaps they went virtual. I'll give you the number so you can call and reach out to them. But that's a resource that's free of charge for men who are trying to deal with issues, right? Here's the thing, and people used to say, like, well, everybody doesn't need a therapist. If you don't believe after COVID and what's happening right now, even if life feels good, I would probably bet money that we all could benefit from talking to a therapist. Our lived experiences, whether directly or indirectly, to racism, to discrimination, to poverty. I mean, we don't even realize the extent to which we are impacted by these things that we see every day. You may not ever have had a fight, but if you see World Star Hip Hop videos on your feed every day, all day, it's likely that you've been impacted in some way by it, right? Whether directly or indirectly. So I just really want to drive home this idea that it's okay to talk to someone. You can talk to friends. You can start there, right? I'm not saying everybody has to go to a therapist right away. And if you don't have access to the resources, Start by opening up though, right? Like try to be vulnerable with people. When people ask how you are doing, don't just say, "Oh, I'm cool, thanks for asking," and keep it moving, right? And I'm guilty of that. It's like we ask people all the time in passing, "How are you doing?" And the standard response is, "Oh, I'm good. Thanks for you. How are you?" "Oh, I'm good. Thanks for asking." Keep it moving. I have made it a point not to ask people how they are doing unless I have the time and the capacity to sit and listen. Because when we ask that question, it's a question, and oftentimes people are not doing well. But if I don't make myself open and available for them to share how they are doing, then they likely won't share. And so Laura talked about that very early on when she first got on. She said, just ask, "How are you doing?" She said, yeah, Laura, you can't join from your laptop. You can only join from a cell phone. I learned that a couple of talks ago. So see if you can hop back on your cell phone. But it's really important for us to ask people how they're doing and be open to listening. And she also hit on this a little bit too. And this is something that I am constantly battling and struggling with, is this idea of listening versus trying to fix. So I'm a fixer. Like, I hate to see people suffering. I hate to see people hurt. If there's something I can do to help you, I want to help, because I don't want you sitting in sadness. I don't want you sitting in, frustration. That's just not my personality. And I'm learning a lot about myself being an adult child of an alcoholic. That's part of that. Being a fixer, always wanting to fix things, is something that I am learning to work through. And so most recently, what I do is when people are talking to me, I'll ask them, "What do you need from me in this moment? Do you need me to listen? Do you need advice? Do you need me to help you fix it?" Like, it's okay for you to say, "I don't need you to help me fix it. I just want you to listen." It's okay to say, "Actually, I do need some advice because, I've tried all these things, or I'm thinking about these things and I don't know where to go." If people don't ask you that, it's okay to advocate for that for yourself, right? So if you call up your friend and you like, "Look, I got some stuff going on. I just need somebody to listen real quick." Bam, you told them up front. You already know, okay, this is, so then it tells me as a listener, okay, I don't need to think about how I'm gonna help you fix it. All I'm doing is listening. And I think the other piece that we talked a little bit about too is like, oftentimes we have good intentions and we're trying to fix things for people, but it comes off as if we're invalidating their feelings, right? So for example, I was just texting someone a couple days ago and they said, "How are you? Are you good?" I said, "No, just no, period." That was it. That was my response. I think it caught the person off guard, because then they texted me back about an hour and a half later and was like, "What's going on?" Or maybe they just weren't in a position to be able to actually dig in. And I just let it all out via text. I'm on the road back I was on the road to Minneapolis. And what I said was, "I got you, Laura." So what I said was a lot. It's a lot, COVID, the race riots, my mom, I'm thinking about her. My nephew was locked up. COVID is running rampant in Cook County. I'm thinking about school. I'm thinking about work. It's a lot. And the person responded back and said, "Focus on the things that you can control." And I looked at the phone like, that sounds real good. um, Knowing that they had the best intention, but it didn't help and it didn't feel good, right? And I'm not saying that people should allow you to sulk and just sit in your feelings for forever and never come out of it. I don't think that's healthy either. But I think we have to find more productive ways to reaffirm people and to help them to understand that it's okay to feel how you feel right now. Give me a moment, right? It's not like this is day 76 and I'm still like, "Oh, the sky is falling. I don't know what I'm going to do." But if your initial response is to just quickly try to make them get out of what they're feeling, it oftentimes doesn't help and sometimes could hurt. So just be mindful of how you are listening to people. Be mindful of how you are showing up for people. Ask them, "Do you need me to listen? Do you need me to fix it? Do you need advice? How can I be most supportive to you right now?" Oftentimes when people are talking to me, and sometimes I don't have answers or even ideas or suggestions or strategies to even start with, but I just ask, like, "How can I be most supportive to you right now?" And sometimes they'll say, "I just need you to listen." Or sometimes they might say, "I need help researching XYZ so I can get to the next step." Whatever it is, but give them the space and the ownership to tell you how to support them. And I've learned a lot in that. And so I have to do a better job of it, because again, my personality is to jump to fix. And so if you're listening on this, yes, empathy. Yes, Lord. Yes, empathy, right? and understanding too, and like, you know, we're talking a lot about race and how white folks need to check their privilege, and like I need to check my privilege a lot too, right? Which is why I could talk about, you know, people and how, you know, it's not about why they're going in stores and taking stuff. I got up and I went to clean up the community, right? Even though I don't have the desire to go into a store to take something out of it, it doesn't mean that I get to, you know, judge or condemn others who feel like they need to go get what they need to get, right? That's me checking my privilege to say like, yo, I haven't had a thought about going into a store. I love sneakers, but I didn't have a thought about going into Nike on my way home. It was still stuff in there because I'm also not in a position where I can't go out and buy what I need. When you're talking about disenfranchised folk who don't have access to resources, that's my empathy coming out to say, like, I'm not here to judge. I'm not, I might even tell you the police coming. Like, I'm telling you, right? But I can also get up and go clean up the community because I have the empathy. I know that, you know, we all are in this thing together. People are hurting. I can't imagine what some folks are going through. And so I think that's the empathy that Laura's talking about. So I don't know if you guys have things in the comments. Laura's trying to charge her phone. I had a couple more questions for her. She's trying to charge her phone so she can rejoin the live. But if anybody wants to share any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about mental health, feel free to do that in the comments. And then I'm just going to give her a couple more seconds to see if she can join. Let's see what we have here. King, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining. Let's see what else we got. Oh, respect, John. Thank you for joining. DeAndre, thank you for joining. Let's see what else we got. Namika, she is excellent. Did you get a chance to meet her while she was at U of I? So Namika Bates, she's on the comments here. She is like thebomb.com. She was so dope when I was at U of I. I'm not sure if she's still there. Has her PhD. She's an amazing resource for Black folks coming through U of I. So yeah, Laura's like bomb. So I hope that you guys had a chance to connect. Fuel your mind with things you need. Absolutely. Josh, thank you for joining. Josh Robinson, utilize your village. Yes, we have to utilize the village. Oh, and I also want to say this too. So if you are watching and you have young people who you know, either you're supporting, mentoring, or you're a parent. In my work with youth, what I've found is that it's super important for youth to have people to talk to, right? And this is what parents often don't understand. They'll say, you know, well, I'm asking them, are they okay? I'm asking them, what do they need? I'm even asking them, how can I support them? And they're not telling me anything. Consistently, what I'm hearing from youth, what they're saying is, that's my mom or that's my dad. And I don't want to say anything that's going to upset them, or I don't want to talk to them about this thing that has happened in my life because I don't know how they're going to respond. Oftentimes, they're doing that and saying that because they love you. Yay, Lori, you're back.
Okay, awesome. I've been hearing everything.
You got your headphones?
I do, but I'm charging my phone. It's like I can't.
Okay, because I don't know if it's gonna let us. It kind of often has feedback if you don't have headphones.
Okay. Do you have do you hear? Okay. I'm not sure what I can do. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you want, you can. Maybe if I ask questions to you, you can type the comments.
Yeah, for sure.
You'll do that?
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot what I was saying, guys. Thank you guys for hanging in there. I'm gonna ask her some questions and she's going to type them in. Let me see what was in the questions what were we talking? Oh, yes, the importance of having a person for your child or young person to be able to talk to, because oftentimes they love you so much, they feel like they're going to disappoint you. They feel like they are going to let you down if they tell you about certain experiences that they've had. And so it's really important for you to be okay with the fact that you may not be the person that your young person wants to confide in about everything, because you're the parent, right? So just be open to that. Let's see. Good way to start a conversation. Yes, I always ask, like, how can I best support you right now? Do you need advice? Do you need me to just listen? What do you need? And kind of let them take it from there. Adriana said, I think grounding yourself in something is very important part y'all talked about, and something that has helped my mental health is developing a routine, as well as getting into natal charts. I'm not sure what that is, Adriana. You gotta tell me a little bit more about that. It helps when no one else is around or trustworthy enough to reaffirm what I am thinking or struggling with, to read something that helps me think through the tough situations and feelings. So I'm gonna just be a little bit transparent and vulnerable with you guys here. I talked a little bit about being an adult child of an alcoholic. I read this book. It blew my mind because legit, I read like it's like 12 descriptors that they'll say or characteristics of adult children of alcoholics. And when I say of the 12, probably like 9 of them, I was like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And I have struggled with this notion of trying to figure out how my lived experiences in my past intersect with who I am today and how I can move forward with them. So one of the characteristics of being an adult child of an alcoholic is overanalyzing. And if you know me, I can debate really well. You know that I can analyze things really well, and it has served me well in a lot of areas of my life. Right, like being able to look at a problem and analyze it from 50 different ways as a school leader or a principal or a teacher. Like, oh, my kids might think that, or oh, the parents might. Did I think about that? That has been amazing, right? The issue with that, though, is in my personal life, sometimes I'm overthinking things when it's really not that serious. And I don't know how to shut that off. So this is a moment of transparency for me, right? So when Adriana is talking about being in this space where, you don't have people around to reaffirm you. So, it could be a good move that I'm making, but I will ask myself 50,000 questions about it until I talk myself out of it and then don't do it, right? And so there's this nuance again around dealing with the mind and how do we tame the mind, because it's such a powerful thing. If I'm constantly reiterating to myself negative thoughts or second guessing myself and not being able to reassure myself, then it doesn't give me the outputs that I'm actually looking for. So I'm going to look into those natal charts. Adriana, thank you guys. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's I need that resource, because people aren't always there to reaffirm me when I need it, but I need to learn how to get out of my own thoughts to make better decisions. Shout out to Dr. Bates. Yes, Namika is amazing. Oh my goodness, she's amazing. So Laura said, yes, that person often comes as a mentor, teacher, family, friend, or other person that is not you, the parent or guardian. Yes. So sometimes it's really important for us to have a person. It could be their auntie. It could be an older cousin. And, it shouldn't be somebody who is, it should be somebody that you trust, obviously, right? Because I am that person for some young people. And I have to be honest and saying to the parent, like, there are some things that they're going to discuss with me that I'm not going to share with you. I want to coach them to share it. Now, I will tell the young person, if you're thinking about hurting yourself or someone else, or if it's something that's happened to you, I am a mandated reporter, and I have to follow certain protocols. But outside of that, I am not going to go back and tell your parent what we talked about, because it doesn't help them to be able to build trust. And it also doesn't teach them how to actually have those conversations themselves. So it could be a mentor, it could be a cousin, it could be an older sibling, it could be an aunt. But it should definitely be somebody that you trust to know that, if it's really that bad, they'll let you know. But in the event that they choose, like, yo, I can't tell you what they said, you need to trust that they're building that relationship and they got you and they got your baby, and it won't be anything that's going to harm them. So Laura said, natal charts are astrology's explanation to understanding people individually. The thought behind that is that if you have a person's date, place, and time of birth, you can learn about them. I'm going to look that up. And I just want to touch on this religion piece too, because Laura talked about it a bit, and we're not, I'm not here to say what anybody should believe in, right? But Laura talked about this idea of prayer and meditation, and she talked about how she's been able to overcome. Laura has been through, and she mentioned it on this live, she's been through a lot. She lost her mom and her baby within a course of 2 months, right? And she's 23 years old, like still trying to figure life out. And life has been really, really throwing curveballs at her. And last week we were supposed to do this live, but she found out that her grandpa died last week, which is why we pushed it back a week. So her saying that she's leaning on meditation and prayer, I think is key. Not to say that you all have to lean on meditation and prayer, but you have to have something that's going to ground you. If you believe in astrology, if you believe in a universe, if you believe whatever it is that you believe, is the thing that's going to drive you, then you need to have that at the forefront, because life is going to continue to happen. Life doesn't get easier, but we do have tools, strategies, tips that will help us to deal with them as the problems come our way. And so I think that that's key for us to think about. And for me, I know I lean on my, like, not my own understanding. A lot of this stuff don't make sense to me. Like, I have a lot of questions about why things are happening the way that they're happening. But at the end of the day, I know that I can say it's all going to work together for my good and for those around me, right? Like, if I know that, then it does help me to ease this habit that I have of overthinking things. And so, like, you need to find whatever your thing is in order to be able to ground yourself when life throws curveballs at you. So Sydney says, I overthink until I exhaust my thoughts and then don't move forward at times. That's something I like to control. Me too, Sydney. So perhaps you and I could be accountability partners. And so when I was on this road trip over the weekend, I was talking to my co-driver, and she was just saying to me, Jillian, just trust your intuition. She might still be on here, but she was like, trust your intuition. And I almost, like, legit had a breakdown. We were walking down Lake Street in Minneapolis, Minnesota, going through all this stuff. And she was like, just trust your intuition. And I almost, like, started crying right then and there. She probably don't know it, but here's why. Because I realized in that moment, I believe in intuitions. I believe in spirits of discernment. I believe in all that. And I pray for those things regularly. But here's the problem. When you are an overthinker and you overanalyze things, you don't know if it's your mind overanalyzing or if it's your intuition telling you what to do. And that has been the hardest thing for me, because if I was more confident in my intuition, knowing that it was my intuition, I would follow it. But because I know I am an overthinker, I even second guess myself even more, because I'm like, is this my intuition telling me that this is what I should or shouldn't do? Or is this my over analyzing and overthinking, my mind playing tricks on me, right? And this is why the mind is such a powerful thing, which is why you have to get into your word, get into your meditation, whatever it is that's going to ground you, because it's hard to hear from God, in my opinion, or that's my higher power and what I believe in. It's hard for me to believe in God when I'm battling with my mind. And so I have to find ways to be still, to be silent, to just sit in silence, and to hear a word. And every time my mind starts to wander or starts to get off track, I'm like, okay, Lord, bring me back. Like, I need to hear a word from you. I'm just Jesus. This is me, right? Now, if you guys have other thoughts and strategies, or Sydney, if you want to be my accountability partner, I'm going to do some more research. Like I said, I read that book and it was very eye-opening. It did not give me a lot of strategies of how to overcome being an overthinker, but I know that it's something that, and that's the hard part about all of this, is that being an overthinker has served me well in many instances. So it's not something that I want to completely get rid of, but it is something that I acknowledge will hinder me from taking necessary risks, or trusting in some cases, or loving without limits in some cases, because I'm overthinking and overanalyzing. So if anybody has resources around that, please feel free to share them with me. I'm happy to be a resource to you guys. We can figure this thing out together, but that's just kind of where I'm at with the overthinking. Okay, Laura, I'm going to ask you a question. So, and then I'll look back in the comments to see what people are saying as you're typing. So one of the things that we know is happening, right? We see and I'm using this loosely, riot and looting, because I don't believe in all of that, but that's just what they're calling it, is happening in our community, right? But when we talk about mental health, like, I want to know from your perspective, what happens when there are no resources to support mental health? And I'm asking this question very deliberately, because I don't think people are making the connection between folks' behavior and what they're trying to communicate. And so this is not something I'm making up. This is just science, research. Behavior is a form of communication. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we listening? And so if we're talking about mental health, if we're talking about anything that's happening in our communities, if behavior is a form of communication, I'd like to think that not having access to mental health is going to then manifest itself in a specific way through behavior. So Laura, my question is, what happens when there are no resources to support the mental health of our folks? What might be the implications for that? And if there's anybody else on here who'd like to share, feel free to type stuff in the comments, leave questions, wonderings. But I think that is how I categorize what I'm seeing happening. Like, I'm always looking through the lens of like what's underneath it, right? Like, so even as a teacher, and I think that's what's kind of helped me be somewhat successful as a teacher, because I never take a student's behavior personally. Like, if I got called out of my name, or somebody tried to push past me, or, parents used to go in on me, oh, you young, you don't know nothing, all this stuff. I never really took that stuff personal, because I understood that there was something underneath it, right? And so I'm not going to say, go as far as to say that folks were struggling mentally, but I do understand that people's lived experiences manifest in their behavior. And so, Auntie Oprah always say, when you know better, you do better. And so I really assume the best in folks. Like, if you are saying or doing something that doesn't serve you or me well, I don't look at you as a bad person and say, oh, you're a bad person, or how could you be disrespectful to me? It's like, no, I don't feel disrespected by you because you don't know me. What I do know, though, is that you're probably hurting and struggling in ways that you haven't figured out how to work through. So Laura says, we are, as a community, experiencing a moment of crisis. We make the mistake of confusing action for logic. And that's unfair and extremely biased. Yes, yes, and yes. So in our little minds, we're trying to think logically, like, why would we be tearing up our community? Why are we doing X, Y, and Z? When the reality is, yes, it's just unfair and it's biased, right? Like, if I am not struggling for necessities, it's easy for me to say, I don't understand why folks can't just stay in the house, during COVID. Or if I'm not struggling to make ends meet, if I was living check to check before this riot and stuff started happening, and now COVID is here and I haven't had a check in I don't know how long, it's probably going to be an opportunity for me to capitalize on getting the things that I need. And so it's important for us to be able to understand people and to have empathy, and to not necessarily confuse action for logic, right? Logically, in our minds, we're like, this doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, it's like, what is driving the behavior? Because when people behave in a certain way, they're communicating to you. You have to determine if you're going to listen to them or not. It's not about the actual behavior. It's about what they are trying to communicate in the absence of that behavior. Adriana said, I believe understanding the self and spiritually can go hand in hand. Once I began to understand my natal chart, why I am the way that I am, basically, it helped me know what to ask God for, or ask God to take away internally, and how to move according when it came to understanding other people. So yeah, so you use that resource as a way to get closer to your higher being, is what it sounds like that you've done. Laura said, without the proper resources, people are going to ruin their neighborhoods and themselves. The irony is that this is why they are rioting and looting. And yeah, and so, I don't, yes, and I don't want to get too far into the whole rioting and looting stuff, because I am going to do a live on that on Thursday with Kiana, who I went to Minnesota with. That was an incredible experience. And we're going to talk more about that. But, what Laura is saying is essentially what I'm asking in this question, right? It's like, what do you expect to happen in communities when we take away mental health resources and services? And that's a rhetorical question, but I want everybody to think about that, especially if you've had something to say about what's happening and how people are behaving. What exactly do you expect to see? What do you expect to hear? What do you expect to experience and feel when people don't have the adequate resources that they need to remain mentally stable and healthy? That's just a question I want you guys to think about, right? So they snatch all our resources out of our community, and then they want to talk about us for not taking care of the community. Well, yeah, that's a symptom of not having what we need. So I think it's important that we understand that in the absence of those resources, you are going to see people's behavior manifest itself in a way that communicates, look, we out here bogus, we need XYZ, we need resources, we need, like, I didn't have a thought in my mind to go in Dollar Tree and get the tissue when I was cleaning up today. It was tons of tissue right there. I wasn't gonna go to jail, but I didn't have to have that thought, because I have not been without what I need. So somebody who needs the tissue, of course they're gonna go get it, and I want them to go get it. So I just want you guys to think about that as we're talking about mental health. Our health is wrapped up in our behavior. And if we have access to the things that we need, it's likely that we might be more logical in our behavior as it relates to somebody being on the outside and looking in. If you are looking at somebody and be like, how dare they? How could they? I just don't understand. That means you got to dig a little bit deeper to understand like the totality of what's happening here. It's bigger than any action or behavior. We really have to think about what's underneath that. Laura said, when it's time to rebuild, we have to take the time to be intentional in the spaces we create. For now, try our best to nurture and heal where we can, however we can. Yeah. And it starts with just trying to seek to understand. You know, I was out there cleaning up and talking to folks and stuff. I wasn't, you know, turning my nose up or trying to pull out my camera and taping them doing stuff. It's like, if the police come, yo, they coming. I'm helping my people. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you need what you need or what's going on. But right now, I'm going to nurture you and empathize with your situation. Because if you need tissue, I don't want you to go then, you know, be in a system. I was on 95th and Stony yesterday. These police hopped out the car with their billy clubs, chasing people, all kind of stuff. It's like they got tissue. They got soap. Like, I think it's important for us to just understand that people are in different places right now. And for what they need mentally is just for you to nurture them and to support them, not to look down on them, not to judge them, and not to, you know, assume the worst in them. You know, people are like, well, you don't really need this. You got an iPhone, but you can't buy tissue. Well, maybe somebody bought me this iPhone for my birthday. Maybe that. That's what I'm saying. Like, my mind goes to the best in our people, not in the worst. And so it doesn't help our people mentally when they have to keep scrolling on Facebook and seeing people judging them about their situation. Like, you would never know that I was poor growing up. You would never know it. Because my village, we're going back to the concept of village. My village stepped in when my mother couldn't. That's the whole point. It didn't make my mother a bad mother. It meant that she had people around her, the village that stepped up. So if you saw me with, you know, a cell phone, a little Nokia, whatever, people probably thought I had money when no, it was my best friend mama. Marissa mama was like, well, I got an extra cell phone in my dresser. I'm going to turn it on for you. So like, we just have to stop judging people, I think, and nurture and, you know, support in the best ways that we can. Laura says, support the businesses and foundations, Black owned preferably, that are trying to help. Yeah, so there's ways to do it. You can be out here, you know, if it's cleaning up, it's people collecting donations to get nonviolent offenders out of Cook County. It's people who have grants for small businesses, Black owned businesses that they're trying to support during this time. There's tons of ways to get involved, right? But I can guarantee you one thing, putting more negative stuff on social media to feed this narrative that Black people don't care, it's not going to help us, y'all. People are already saying that about us. And so if our own people are saying, yeah, they don't care about nothing, they're going to tear everything up, I wouldn't bring nothing else in the community. Guess what? They ain't been wanting to bring nothing in the community. And they don't need you to confirm that to say that they're not going to do it no more. What we have to do is understand people a little bit more, deal with our own issues and our own mental health, and then support our neighbor. It takes a village, right? I may be healthy today and can support you today, but next week I may not have it, and I'm going to need you to have my back. So we have to do a better job of uplifting one another. But I think it starts with us telling our stories. People have to feel comfortable saying they're not okay. I have to feel comfortable saying like, yo, I can't even afford to buy a pack of tissue right now. I need you. And I don't need you to go blast it on Facebook and say, she couldn't even buy tissue. She wearing mics and couldn't even buy tissue. Like, no, that's where we go wrong. It's like, how can we support one another? I think I read something on Instagram a couple years back or something that said, I need somebody that's going to straighten my crown and not tell the world it was crooked or something like that. Like, support one another. Like, we are a community, so we need to uplift one another, but it starts by telling our stories. If you're not okay, say you're not okay. When people ask, how can I help and support you? Tell them, this is what I need from you. And I know it takes practice. I'm talking to myself too, because people always ask me, how can they help and support me? And I always say, without fail, I'm good. Just pray for me. And I do want prayers. I do need prayers. But oftentimes I might say, like, I need somebody to come sit with me for a second because, like, I'm not having positive thoughts. Or I need for you to help me find a therapist because I want to, but I'm just so overwhelmed with the process. But that's what I really need. Or I need for you to just sit with me on the phone while I cry, or listen to me. And, you know, like, whatever it is that you need, just try to open up and be available. Just try your best to share it, because we keep it all bottled in, and then we hit a peak, and then we go crazy, and then we can't sustain ourselves. So that's really, really important. Hi, Kayla Kelly. Lord said confidentiality is key. So this is something I wish we could be on this together, Lord, because this is something that I actually probably would have a different opinion with you about this. So confidentiality is key. This is where I've gotten to in my life. And I think this is why it's so easy for me to be vulnerable on Facebook. Y'all seen 8 Mile, right? That movie single-handedly changed my life. I remember watching 8 Mile when he got into the battle with Papa Dots, and they were battling, and Eminem went first, and he started telling him all this stuff like, yeah, I am white trash, I do live in 8 Mile, like my mom, whatever, like just basically spitting everything that Papa Dots could have said about him. He said it first. So I took that to mean like, I don't really have a lot of secrets in my life. Like, why am I hiding stuff? Why am I ashamed to say that I grew up in the projects? Why, do I try to pretend like I'm going to show up? Like, there used to be a point in my life where I would show up to job interviews and would hope that people thought I was white. It's like, oh, Jillian Carew, like, yeah, my mama gave me a name that was, not too cultured. This is my brainwashed mentality speaking, right? Not too cultured, so I could show up and people, I might be able to pass for white and all these different things. And then I started thinking after I watched that movie, like, yo, no. Like, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to tell you how I feel. And if you try to take it and use it against me, guess what? It probably means that it was meant for somebody else to hear it. Everything is going to work together for my good. So this whole idea of confidentiality is like, we try to create these safe spaces for people. But if you are worried about people telling your story, you're always going to be guarded. That's why I always tell y'all how I feel on Facebook. I'm not just going to put the good stuff up. I need y'all to know, like, today is not a good day. I'm struggling. I got fired. All these different things that's happening, because if I keep that bottled in, then it's like, oh, somebody found out somebody know I got fired. Oh my God. And then I'm like worried about like what they thinking about me. It's like, no, I got fired. It is what it is. This is how I'm going to, move forward with this. So I think confidentiality is a good thing to have with with more complex topics, right? And so if it's something that's very fragile to you, I think you should definitely be guarded in who you talk to. But I really want to encourage us to get on the air or err on the side of like, just tell it all, tell your story. Even if you've been through something that's been traumatic, like a journey. Yes. Be willing to accept the help too. But a journey not shared is a soul not healed. Even if you've been to jail, or if you've been molested, or if you've been raped, or if you've had a miscarriage, or if all of these different things that life throws our way, you are not the only single person that's been through that. And when you start to tell your story and people looking at you like, what, you've been through that and you doing what you're doing now, then it makes people feel like, okay, I got hope. We can lean on each other, right? So I just really want us to think about owning the story in a way where you don't get concerned if people go back and repeat it. So when I tell people I got fired, I'm not worried or concerned if they go share it with somebody else. It's like, that's my story. It's okay. Like, we all struggle, and it's important for us to think about that when we're sharing. Let's see. DeAndre said we have to take a moment to check our own individual privileges. Yes. And step back to become a bit more self-aware. Think from perspectives other than our own. Use any form of privilege to uncover the voices of people who have been told that they do not have one because of their position in society. Y'all just make me so proud. DeAndre, yes. Privilege, right? And the privilege is not black or white or Asian. Like, it ain't got no color on it. I'm privileged because I went to an institution, graduated from U of I. That's privilege. I can go call my doctor and make an appointment. That's privilege. I drive a Mercedes Benz. That's privilege. I have a house to lay my head in. That's privilege. I can go to the store, purchase what I want and when I want it. That's privileged. And I'm Black, right? And so it's important for us to understand that there are people who don't have this too in the wake of COVID. Like, I'm privileged because I actually got to sit by my mom at her bedside as she took her last breath. That's our privilege, because the people who are losing loved ones during COVID, they don't have that privilege. So before I get to talking crazy about how people are coping with grief and loss and death just because I lost my mom, somebody losing their mom in the wake of COVID is very different than somebody losing their mom pre-COVID. So I had a privilege that those who are dealing with that right now, they don't have. So it's important for us to keep that in mind. Hey, Laura, go ahead and jump in. I'm glad to have you back.
The thing about the confidentiality piece, I'm also a person that believes in vulnerability. But also, like I said in the comments, like I'm not a person that just tells my business to people. I'm very intentional with who I share information with. And it is power in sharing your story with people, because I found out once I started to speak up about things I was dealing with, people were like, oh my God, me too. Like, how did you get through it? Like, tell me some things I could be doing. Like, what did you do? Or even the adverse, like helping me develop more skills to help myself get through it. And that was very helpful to me, especially when you feel like when you're going through things like that, it's like, oh, I'm really alone and nobody, that's what the mind tries to tell you. It's like, oh, nobody can relate or nobody cares or whatever. That's not true. People care. People care a lot more than you would think people care. But people, when they don't know, how can they help? So that's the thing. And I don't have much juice, but I'm gonna stay on as long as I can.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see what T said. T said, "This is why we love you. We need to start our T and J talks every week. I'll pay you. You don't have to pay me. Call me, T, anytime." Laura said, "Definitely, I'm not one to give enemies fuel to destroy me." Oh yeah, that's not it, and that's real. I'm also a fan of being vulnerable. It's just that everyone doesn't need to know everything. And so you know what? And I people often tell me that, Laura, you would be probably wouldn't be surprised, but people send me messages all the time like, "Girl, why are you putting that on Facebook? That's your personal business. Why you ain't gotta tell people you got fired and all that stuff." But I
That's people
just,
projecting their fears onto you.
that's, you better talk about it. That's part A. But part B, I think that I just don't believe that God will have me go through anything in life
Mm,
that could then be used as a weapon, right? It'll
yeah.
form, but it's not going to prosper. So if I tell you something, you might then, and it happened on Facebook before. I said something about I want my kids to line up on the blue tape. Somebody sent the screenshot to my boss, and my boss called me. It was like, Jillian, why you just didn't talk to me about the lines on the whatever? And I'm like, we have talked about that, and it was fine. Like, it didn't, not like they thought I was going to get in trouble by it, but I didn't. But
Mm,
it was like, so because I shared that, you went and tried to make it seem like it was something that it wasn't, right? I just don't believe that when we share our stories based on our lived experiences, that God will allow them to be used for negative. Like, even if it
yeah.
hurts, I think that it'll still be blocked. That's just my thought. I don't know if you have something else on that,
No,
Lord.
that's all
Okay.
you. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Okay. Let's see. Adriana said yes, and it's a good way to weed out the people that may be impacting your mental health. Also, because if they blast your trauma, if they blast your trauma, they showing how they are as a person. Yeah, you don't
Big
have
fact.
empathy. That's basically what that means. You don't have empathy, and like you act like you're not going through nothing, when you really are. Because we all are. Any other thoughts you have? Because I do want us to definitely end with like some tips that we can give folks in terms of dealing with their mental health. But is there any other stories? I do believe in, providing space for stories, or if it's anything that you want to share with folks related to mental health that we haven't covered.
We talked about having a village. We talked about resources, about creating spaces. I think I just want to tell people to be kind to yourself. We're all in the middle of life falling apart as we knew it before. So be kind in the sense that maybe you're not where you want to be, and maybe you're not in any shape or form how you want to be, but that is okay. And this is a good time to really take the time and reflect. And that's what I mean by having those spiritual supports and just really tapping into like whatever that source is for you, because now is not the time to be discouraged. I know like life is falling apart and the world is falling apart, but if we have work to do, you can't get discouraged in the middle of the battle. You don't stop fighting when things get hard. No, you gear up, put on a couple of band-aids, you get back to it. I mean, that's not me trying to sound nonchalant, because I'm not, and I care and I love my people. I just want this, and this is time to really tap into people who love you. If anything, now everybody's going to figure out who's really loving them or not, because we need each other right now. That's just what it is. And that's all I have to say. Just be kind to yourself and understand that you're not alone.
Yeah. And I think what I would say to add on to that is be kind to yourself. And what I've learned too is like sometimes it's okay to take a rest. So I saw a lot of people posting today, like, I took today off. Like, I just couldn't. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
You didn't have it. That's okay. Take today off. If you need today and tomorrow, take today and tomorrow too. What we don't want that to turn into is like, okay, now you are so down on yourself that, it's been 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
4 weeks, 5 weeks, and you're still in this state, right? Take time to deal with it in a moment, because that is when you really, not to pretend like things aren't happening and you keep moving along in life. Is to actually take the time that you need in a moment, deal with it then, so that as you continue to move forward in life, you're not being hindered by you're not then hindered by the fact that you didn't take the time to deal with life as it happened. Tips and that we wanted to give you guys. Hopefully, Laura's gonna hop back on for just a second. I'm not sure if her phone died, but like I said, at the end of this live, I'm going to put in the comments some resources for you guys to be able to utilize as it relates to mental health. Laura also mentioned this too, but like using your social media. So Instagram, Facebook, there are groups around wellness, meditation, wholeness, hashtags, mental health. Like follow those hashtags, because just randomly throughout the day, you'll be feeding your mind things that could help you, right? And it'd be like super easy techniques, things to do that could really, really just give you yourself a moment. So right now, Laura, this is just about like some tips. If you haven't already shared of things, I was just reminding them of what you said about social media. If there are any other tips that they could utilize to kind of check in on themselves mentally or others mentally, or
Um, First and foremost, always ask people if they're okay. Just start these conversations in your friend groups. I always like to journal. I think journaling has been very key to me. And I'm a writer too, so it helps me on that end to just get thoughts down. But journaling is an opportunity it's a very patient way of getting to understand what's actually going on in your mind. So when you're journaling, it's just kind of like stream of thought from mind to paper. Like it just makes sense in that moment. And sometimes it's always good to like keep track of what you felt on that day at that time. So it's always good in that way. If you really want to get to know yourself, I recommend journaling. Develop a routine. So that could be different for different people. If you're a person that's like active, get up, schedule time to work out consistently. Um, or schedule times to eat. Some of us aren't eating, and that's the thing. Drink your water because we need that hydration, and also making sure that we're feeding our bodies too. Like, but good things, you know. Sometimes we gotta lay off the chips. I have a few friends that are addicted to chips. I like chips too.
mm-hmm.
Just kind of think about things in consideration like that. Another tip is to check in with yourself. Like actually make time to do that. It sounds easy, just be like, oh, journal, meditate, but actually schedule time to do that. Like whether that looks like setting an alarm or a reminder or something like that. Just create time to do that. Can we have a journal? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like reading stuff as it's coming in.
Yeah, no, that's
But
good.
yeah, like also do that. And I'm sorry, you guys just threw me off.
Yeah, you were saying
Instead of writing,
mhm.
can we have a journal where we speak into a voice memo?
You
I actually
can.
did that for quite some
Hmm.
time. Yeah, you can use your phone to just do that. When I have like really crazy dreams, sometimes I use voice memo to actually recall what happened. Or if it's just not that intense, you can just use it to just talk about whatever it is you're feeling. If you ever had time to go back and listen to those things, that's good too. Um, um,
Yeah,
okay.
I was gonna say that too. I think the voice memo is good, but also I know a lot of people who have YouTube channels, but they don't make
Yeah.
the videos public. So if you want to share
Mm.
your story, you can do that. But I know people who do a free like video blog of just their own personal internal thoughts, and they have it all there so that they can
Oh,
always go
wow.
back and review it, but it's not public, so nobody can ever see the videos. It's just yours. And so that
That's
has been
cool.
right. It's a good way to just like hop on, say what you're feeling, and then keep up with all of that. And then if you wanted to make a video of it, of some sort, of write a book later, you could do all of that too. But Terrence, to your question, if you use that app and you speak into it, that is actually how some people write books. It's like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
writing my daily life or thoughts that I have, and before you know it, you can have a book and make some money off of it. So I agree. Did you read what DeAndre said?
Yeah, he said it's okay to be in tune with your emotions. Unpacking emotions leads to clarity in dealing with unhealed trauma. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity you need in order to work through things may be holding you back from being who God, designed you to be. Check you out. You better start preaching, DeAndre.
Yes.
For sure. Yes, that's very true. I'm just leave it at that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to even comment because we're gonna
Yeah.
get real deep. We're gonna
Yeah,
get real
no,
deep.
it is very true. And I think trauma is real and we pretend that it's not, but it is. And T said that's a good idea. So yeah, guys. So that's, I think that's all we have. We really appreciate you guys for joining us today. We really just wanted to check in with you guys to let you know that in the midst of everything that's going on, it is okay to take care of yourself. Even as a parent, you have children. Sometimes it's okay for you to tell your child, I need a moment, right? Like you have to, because if you don't, you find yourself in positions where you are being abusive, verbally, physically, and it's not because you want to be, but the pressure will, excuse me. Yes. So it's really important that we take care of ourselves. That's basically the underlying issue for all of our behavior. We just have to take a moment. So thank you so much, Lord, for joining. And thank you for everybody who's hung in here with us. Again, come back for probably give me about 10 minutes for me to gather the resources. I'm going to put them in the comments here. And if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out to us. Like, we are here for you. We talked about a village. We are your village. If you just need an ear to listen, I got you. So give us, a ring, a text message, or a message if we could be of a support to you. That's it, y'all. Take care of yourself. Be well, stay safe, and find peace.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Create a space that allows you to be able to heal. I use my bedroom as a space where I have like a mat for meditation. I have my bed set up in a way that allows more light to come through my window, so that I just get up and go. Like, it's no hesitation. I put my speakers in a place where I can hear music better. Like, just really be intentional in creating spaces that work for you. And it's not this glamorous thing. It's just my bedroom. So,
Yeah, no, that's really
um,
good. One other thing I ordered off Amazon is so I don't know if you guys know about this, but weather has an impact on your disposition, seasonal
yes, it
disorder.
does.
But for my Secret Santa got me the light. So there's basically this light you could put in your house, and it kind of makes you feel like you're getting sun, and it really alters your mood. So it's like resources like that to help you feel like, okay,
Oh yeah.
I've been in the house all this time. I need to like figure something out. That's a great resource as well.
I'll also add resources in the comments too. Maybe some accounts that people can follow. I'm big on Instagram, so I really like looking at certain things on Instagram. So if I don't have Instagram, I'll try to find other resources that help everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for being awesome and amazing. I'm so proud of you. As I've stated before, the best is yet to come for you. So, thank you guys for joining us,
Yes.
and we'll talk soon. Bye.